Long. Om Sahana Bhavatu Sahana Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavaditamastu Ma Vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Guru Brahma Guru Vishnu Guru Devo Maheshwara Guru Sakshat Parabrahma Tasmai Shri Gurave Namah. Samastajana Kalyane Nilatam Karunamayam Namami Chinmayam Devam Sadguru Brahma Vidvaram. Budasyanalakomalangam Sita Samaropitavamabhagam Anam Mahasaya Pachanuchapam Namami Ramam Raghuvanshanatham Atulitavadhanamam Yena Shailabhadevam Danutavadushanam Jnanimamagraganyam Sakalagunanidhanam Vanaranamadhisham Raghupati Priyabhaktam Vatajatam Namami. Manojavam Marutatullya Vegam Jitendriyam Buddhimatam Varisham Vatatmajam Vanarayutam Mukyam Shri Ramadutam Sharanam Prapadye. So we have seen till chaupai number 22. सब सुख है तुम्हारी शरण तुम रक्षक काहू को डरना. So all happiness is when we surrender to the Lord. The more we run behind the world, temporary pleasure is what one gets and one gets more and more exhausted. The real happiness that we seek, the permanent happiness, lies in surrendering the ego. That's why in the state of deep sleep, we feel so happy. So ego is happy. The state of desirelessness, the state of egolessness is the state of complete happiness. In the waking experiences, we cannot live like living through the day. So how do I continue the experience of egolessness or desirelessness in the waking state? That is where surrender comes. That whatever I am doing, I do it as an instrument with the bhavana that the Lord is the doer, and I surrender what? Surrender my insistence, surrender my attachment, surrender my prejudices. Ultimately surrender the sense of strong doership I have. That person becomes empty. Actions flow through such a person. Dynamic achievements also happen. And yet the ego being less, the person feels very light. The ego pressure is not there. And that is why one remains in the state of happiness, come what may. So, Sab Sukh Lahe Tumhari Sarana. Hence one has to discover an altar of surrender in one's life. This being Hanuman Chalisa, we say surrender to Hanumanji. Here, symbolic message is any altar of surrender. It can be country, culture, a field, work, family, any altar of surrender where my self-importance can reduce. That altar of surrender when one has, the amount of, to the extent we are able to surrender our ego, to that extent we are experiencing happiness. they are directly proportional. Complete surrender is infinite happiness. To the extent we are able to surrender even 5%, 10%, to that much extent we become light, we feel happy. And that's why he says, Sab sukh lahe tumhari sarna. There is no happiness that cannot be achieved by a person who is able to surrender. In Bhaja Govindam we saw a similar line. Kasya sukham na karoti virar. What happiness is not available to a person who has complete detachment. They both are one and the same. Detachment from the ego is equal to surrender. And that person experiences supreme happiness. Right here while living. Then he says, Tumurachak kahu ko darna. When you are there to protect me, why should I fear? See, everyone requires protection in this world. Because there are so many factors. Number one, things are changing constantly. So our body also changes. From health we fall into disease. Wealth we become poor. Name and fame goes away. So many things happen in life. So there's always a fear of losing certain things which we have got used to or got attached to. So the fear is always there. Fear of losing our near and dear ones or something happening to them. Always there is some or the other type of fear which is there in our mind. Now generally what do we think? For different types of fear, we think different things will be our source of security. So against a financial crisis which can come, we feel that a certain amount of money will be our security. Against some physical calamity, we may say insurance or whatever is a security. For emotions, we want more and more people to be with us so that we don't put all our emotional eggs in one basket and then get devastated if that person leaves us or does not love us. So we want more and more people, social life, some near and dear ones whom we call ours. So our security generally depends on money, on position, on power, on people, and to a functional level that is necessary, no doubt. Money is necessary, people are necessary, power is necessary. There is no issue in that. But at a deeper level, we should always know that these by themselves cannot give me complete security. Because they themselves are perishable. Complete security comes only from that which is imperishable. And hence, what is really the source of security in one's life is one's own faith. Nothing gives more security than faith. And what is that faith? The faith, as far as the devotee is concerned, the faith is that the Lord is with me, the Lord loves me as I am, and the Lord knows the best. Three things. That the Lord is with me at all times. You have heard that famous story of two people, a person walking on the sand and he sees two footprints and he says one footprint is mine, one footprint is the Lord's. And then suddenly he sees that in these difficult times there is only one footprint. So he says, Lord, where have you disappeared? And the Lord says that I was the one who was carrying you. It is my footprint, it is not your footprint. A motivational story, but the fact is that Bhagavan is with us at all times. And do you know that when crisis comes is the time when we realize that. That's why Kunti prayed to the Lord that please give me pain, because only when I am in pain I am able to remember you. The mind is such that at happy times I forget you. So at such times I don't feel the presence of the Lord with me. And in difficult times, if I am not remembered the Lord in good times, I am not going to remember Him in the difficult times suddenly. But whether I remember Him or not, the Lord is always with me. The remembrance only gives me that strength that yes, the Lord is with me. So first is the Lord is with me. Second, the Lord loves me as I am. Lord does not punish anybody. This is a concept which has come out in a certain primary or a preliminary level of religion. When we were children, we used to see certain movies which would come, Santoshi Ma and this and that. And you don't take the prasad and suddenly you will have all kinds of boils all over, or you break some vow and then some loss will happen and something happens. So then one gets scared, oh my God. So that is a fear psychology which is created. Because the person doesn't understand logic at certain age. So one doesn't need to be scared of the Lord. Gurudev always used to tell us, God, you are not punished for your sins, but by your sins. Meaning our own wrong actions bring a negative consequence to us. God is not sitting up there to punish anybody. There is a system which has been created. According to the system, things go on. So a devotee can't say that, I am a devotee, so I am going to defy the law of gravity. I will jump from top. He will also fall down. So there is a system. I want us to understand the system. So there is a law. So there is a law of karma which is working. And according to that law of karma, the results come to a person. In the Gita, Bhagavan says that very clearly. Samoham sarva bhuteshu. I am equal to all beings. There is no one special to me and there is no one whom I hate. So we don't have to be scared that if I am in a difficult time, it is Bhagavan punishing me or I am a bad person. Some karma I have done in the past, I have got this result. Let me learn and move on. Bhagavan is there with me and loves me as I am. So God is always with me, God loves me as I am, and God knows the best. Ishvara knows the best. That we have put our application through our desires. This is what I want. Now it is up to the Lord to give us the right environment.
Where does the prayer come in this then? Like if we say that God knows the best and something bad has happened to me, then should I pray for it getting better? Because if God was, going to do whatever is best for me.
See, there are different levels in this. If I am able to live in that level of surrender at all times saying God knows the best, that devotee doesn't even ask for betterment. But if I am not able to live at that level, it is better to pray and remember the Lord to get the strength to face. What example can we give? A grown-up child will know that suppose the father or the mother is denying certain thing to a child, it is good for the good of the child. A small baby will not know that. So in the same way, when a person is able to live in that state of surrender, one doesn't ask for anything. Total surrender and total acceptance go hand in hand. That devotee will only remember the Lord at all times. Will not ask for alleviation of pain or removal of suffering or any such thing. Bhishma is a very beautiful example for it. He never asked Krishna Bhagavan, who was in front of him when he was on the bed of arrows, that Bhagavan, please remove my pain. He never asked. He did not pray for removal of pain and sorrow. Two things he did. One, he followed the instruction of the Lord. Bhagavan asked Yudhishthira to go to him and ask him about administration. Now imagine, he is on the bed of arrows. And he has to give a discourse to Yudhishthira on how to rule a kingdom. Because Krishna Bhagavan says that the royal sun is setting. This is the time, just go and ask. Now, he never said, "Okay, how will I even talk? All arrows have pierced my whole body." He said, if Bhagwan wants me to talk, I will talk. He will give me the strength. And it is true, Bhagwan, you see the Mahabharata, Bhagwan blesses Bhishma that hunger, thirst, pain will not affect you as long as you are talking. And you will have your full intellectual alertness. And that Shanti Parva of Mahabharata is so huge. It has baffling kind of knowledge on management, administration, and leadership. If you read that, no, you will find that lot of it is applicable even today. Mahabharata mein one of the 18 parvas or chapters is the Shanti Parva. In that Raj Dharma, he gives Bhishma gives the knowledge of Raj Dharma to Yudhishthira along with Moksha Dharma. So he spoke that. And after that, Yudhishthira asked him about what is that which will be able to grant moksha to the human being. And it is at that time that Bhishma brought out the Vishnu Sahasranam. The famous Vishnu Sahasranam that we chant is a composition of Bhishma on the bed of arrows. So that's just one example. But at the same time, you find people, devotees like Gajendra, the elephant, who was caught by the crocodile. So he prayed to the Lord, saying, Bhagwan, you please save me. So there are levels of devotees. Rather than not remembering him at all, it is better to pray and ask. So when we say that Tumarachak kaho ko darna, the faith that the Lord is with me, the Lord loves me, and the Lord knows the best. That is what really, really protects us. Now I have put down a few aspects about this fear. Because when we have fear in our heart, real solution to fear is what we should see. So let us go ahead and see some of these aspects. Why do we need to have freedom from fear? Because any fear permeates many areas of our life. It doesn't remain in one area, whatever that fear may be. So I have given here an example. Some people have fear of making new friends. They don't open up. So then that creates an inhibition. So they are not able to go to functions, social gatherings, etc. Or even having intimate relationships. They cannot trust people for applying jobs and so many things. Somebody who has a fear of darkness will not be able to explore. Somebody like Arjuna had the fear of getting a bad name, that I have to kill my own people, or the fear of losing the near and dear ones. So fear is in one aspect of his life, but it does not remain there. It eclipsed his clarity of thinking. He was there as a soldier, now he started looking at himself as an individual. And at the physical level also he got very paralyzed. He couldn't stand, his hand was shivering, both fell down. So, body, mind and intellect, three areas, internally and externally, social life, financial life and all that. So, depending on what type of fear is, it may be in one aspect of life, but it will affect all the other areas. Hence, it is very, very crucial to get out of one's own fears. And remember, they don't go by time. They go by maturity, by thinking, and by consciously removing them. If they went by time, lot of elders would have got over the fear of small things. Fear of cockroach, fear of darkness, fear of heights. It doesn't go by time just like that. It goes by conscious effort. One has to do practice. One has to gain the right knowledge, all that. And utmost faith. Second reason why we have to be free from fear is directly related to decision making. When Arjuna was overpowered by this fear, his decision was wrong, that he wanted to run away. Fear makes us an escapist. Fear doesn't allow us to face things as it comes. So it is very necessary to know our biggest fears and work on them. Consciously I have to identify, okay, my top 3 fears are 1, 2, 3. These are my fears. Find out the cause of those fears and start working on them. First response of fear is this: forget everything and run. The moment of fear happens in one's life, one faces something which makes a person scared. One wants to escape and run. In psychology, they call it as fight or flight response. If I am able to fight, I will fight it. Otherwise, I want to run away. I don't want to face it. And the way in which fear works is the more we run away from it, the more it will increase. So there are 4 levels of fear. One is called as a biological fear. That is the last fear to go because of the attachment to the body. So the fear of being hurt physically, fear of death, fear of wild animals, old age, all these are physical related biological fears. Then there are emotional fears of losing one's possessions, relationships, near and dear ones, being rejected by somebody, of loneliness. So many people don't even come to face this fear. They just escape from it. Loneliness is a very deep fear. It's there in majority. But one doesn't want to face it. So one mixes with some people, watches some movie, plays something, somehow engage oneself. And so many distractions are available to it. But fear of loneliness is there. Fear of what will people think. So many times we live life by this, not by our conviction. We live life by what people will think and we live for them. Intellectual fears, fear of failure, fear of criticism. I give an opinion and it may not be accepted. Or I do something, people may criticize. And very strange. If you do something and people criticize, is very good. Because at least that means you are doing something which is worth their attention. But many people don't start only because they feel, oh, if somebody criticizes, why should I do? I won't do only. Or once they will do and somebody criticizes, they will stop. So criticism, reputation damage, not doing one's duty, compromise, there are different intellectual fears. And very strange it is to have a spiritual fear. Spirituality is to make me fearless. But people use that only to create fear also. I'll finish this one point. Can tell me, is it possible to have the fear of unknown? Yes or no?
Yes.
Very
Very much? Give me one example.
death. You don't know what will happen after death. Fear of unknown.
So, 1 minute. So, what is creating the fear is not knowing what will happen after death or the imagination of what will happen after death?
The imagination.
Not knowing after death.
Not knowing cannot create, an absence cannot create a result. No?
We're expecting something bad.
That is creating. We're expecting something bad. No? That is a negative imagination. If I imagine positive, it will not go. It will not be there. Fear won't be there. There's a simple story, there was a terminally ill patient who was in the hospital. Few moments left for that person to live. And the doctor came in. And along with the doctor, the dog of this person also came in. And the dog started licking this person, and he was so happy and wagging the tail and all that. And this person also was smiling and happily interacting with the dog. So doctor said, "Are you not scared? Few moments are left, you are going to die." He said, "Doctor, do you see this dog? How happy this dog is. How much the dog was waiting across that door. The moment the door opened, the dog was so excited because the dog knew that my master is there and I'm going to meet my master. So the dog is so thrilled and he has come inside. I am also waiting. When I go through the gates of death, my master is there. Why should I be scared?" Now that is his positive thinking and knowledge. That doesn't create fear in him. Actually speaking, fear of unknown is a myth. I can never be scared of the unknown. You think if you want. This is majority of us we have been told of that fear of unknown creates a problem. Future is unknown, right? Not knowing the future creates a problem, or imagining negatively that something may happen in future which will create a loss for me, that creates a fear. It is not the unknown that creates fear. It is the imagination of the known which creates the fear. Think about it. I don't know what is in the darkness. Does that create fear? No. What creates fear is I start imagining. What is there in that? Maybe there is a ghost. Maybe there is a dog. Maybe there is a cockroach. Something. Then I am scared. So fear of unknown is very strange. There is nothing called fear of unknown. But we are troubled by what we know. And the lesser we know, the more assumptions we have, the more will be the fear. Hence, if I know clearly what is going to happen at the time of death, what is going to happen after death, there may be physical pain, but fear need not be there. That depends on the clarity of the knowledge and the faith that I have. Fear of God is not required. We don't have to be God-fearing people, we have to be God-loving people. And fear of fate. What is that fate? It's not that Bhagavan is sitting up there and writing dirty things on our forehead and making us suffer. My own past karma is fate. And today's my karma will create tomorrow's fate. So, spiritual fears are really unfounded fears. All fears are unfounded only. But not required is a spiritual level, spiritual realm of fear. Now,
Can you elaborate on not doing duty and compromising?
I am coming to that. That's the next slide. When I don't do something which I am supposed to do, that makes me feel guilty. Now my parents are there, let us say. I have to do some duty towards them, but I ignore and I go and do something. I may put down my conscience prick and just ignore and do what I want to do, but the guilt will remain. One. Two, there is always the fear that my children may do the same thing with me. I won't be able to trust. So there are different ways in which fear works. A student who has not done the duty of studying, he is going to be scared at the time of exam. So not doing what I am supposed to do can definitely create fear.
But then what does it tell about our human evolution? Even after millions of years, we have the same fear, same everything. So what has really changed?
Exactly. That's the whole point. That if I have got the buddhi, I should be able to get out of these fears. It only tells us that we are not paying enough attention to our buddhi and our attention is still outside on things, people. Our attachment is very strong to these things. And hence fear continues to survive in our life. In that movie Batman, first movie, first part of Batman.
Yeah.
In that fear is very nicely handled. Such a strong man, but he has that fear of those bats, in the night. In the well he was put, and that keeps coming to him again and again. But finally he overcomes that fear. Nobody can escape one's fear. The way to strength is fear, is overcoming fear. There's some cool drink advertisement which comes, "Dar ke aage jeet hai," something like that. I don't know. On hoarding somewhere I saw.
Mountain,
One cool drink was there, and then they have written "Dar ke aage jeet hai."
mountain view.
So I didn't understand what that was, but I said line is nice only, "Dar ke aage jeet hai."
It shouldn't be adventurous sports in that mountain view where
He's scared to do that adventurous sport, and then once he pushes it and you overcome that fear to do it, then he basically is victorious.
Okay.
you just has to drink that and then it becomes.
Oh, very
That's
good.
that.
Drink that drink, become fearless. Very good.
Yeah, that's that.
But Swamiji, is it important to face all your fears?
100%.
Even if it's not very significant, as in it doesn't matter to my life if I don't know how to swim. Why should I go? Why should I learn? I have that fear.
It's precisely only to free the mind of fear. whether I use that skill or not is irrelevant, number one. Number two, do I know in future that I may not need that skill? I don't know. Number three, whenever I see somebody swimming, that is going to come up in my head. I can't swim. I have fear of water. This fellow told me this. I tried also, but I don't think I can swim. Is it not going to limit me? It is going to come. So it is not about achievement. It is about freeing the mind from fear, and the mind must know that this person is such that he will not entertain any fear or she will not entertain fear and will put that effort to overcome fear. As I said earlier, fear makes me an escapist. And that tendency, the mind is the same. No? It is not about swimming. Tomorrow it may be about some bigger thing that the mind is going to bring it up. Saying, you can't do this. The same fear tendency will carry forward. So it is very necessary to get out of any form of fear. Except certain fears which are, which physically you are not capable of doing. Now, if you have reached a certain age, then you say, I have fear of skydiving, but I want to overcome it, I want to jump. That cannot be done because now there is a physical limitation that your heart will not allow, your body will not allow. That's a different thing. I am talking about the psychological aspect of fear. So we have put down here 4 causes. There could be many different causes, but I put down 4 main ones. First is negative imagination is the big cause of fear. When he says, Tumurachak kahu ko darna, it helps to face this negative imagination by having faith that the Lord is with me. Why should I worry? Even if the negative consequence happens, I will handle it. Negative imagination is a bane for fear. That's the cause of main cause of fear.
Like if someone doesn't reach home, the first thing you think of
Accident.
is something accident.
Yeah. Straight.
So how do we?
I'm coming to that. Second, doing prohibited activity 100% creates fear, whether I face it or not, whether I want to be aware of it or not. The moment I do something which I am not supposed to do, fear has started. Now, in this, definitely the understanding of right and wrong and morality, etc., comes into play.
This is related to the compromise you were talking
This is related to a compromise. And I know this is right and I still do the wrong. Duryodhana's life, you see how much fear, my God. His army is much bigger than Pandava's army. And forget the army. He has one warrior on his side who is Bhishma, who will die only at his will. That man is alone capable of destroying the whole army of Pandavas. And he was fighting with Duryodhana, for Duryodhana. Until he was alive, the battle lasted for 10 days. Even with such an invincible warrior on his side, why was he so scared? Why was Dhritarashtra so scared what will happen to his children? Because they did not do their duty. They did all the wrong things. People may not accept this fact or they may not show this fact. You may say that there are enough people in the world today doing wrong things, getting away with it. But you should see their personal life, you should see the mindset. Can they sleep peacefully? Can they sleep happily? Not possible. Even if they pretend to sleep happily, it is only a pretension. Just to show people that I have gotten away, just to show their smartness. Karma will never leave anybody. So when I do wrong things, it will create fear. Attachment is surely a cause of fear. What I get attached to, I don't want to lose that. That creates fear. It can be people, it can be sleep, it can be food, it can be position, success, anything. I get attached to it, I don't want to lose it. Raga creates bhaya and krodha. In Gita we have a beautiful expression. That expression is unique to Gita. Vita raga bhaya krodha. Person who has gone beyond attachment is the person who goes beyond fear and anger, both. And lastly, ignorance is the root cause of fear. This we have seen earlier. The mind plays the game. I don't know. And then what if I can't handle? So these four causes. Now what is the solution? For negative imagination, faith or living in the present moment is the solution. Bring the mind into the present. And if you can't do that, have the faith that whatever will happen in future, I can face it, the Lord is with me. Or whatever is your source of faith, which will bring you security. Hold on to that. The best is the Lord. So, tumurachak ka humko karna. Then, when I do prohibited activity, the solution is duty. Stick to the duty. The more I stick to duty, the more strong the mind is. The more I deviate and ignore the duty and doing the prohibited action. This is a human problem. Not doing what I am supposed to do and doing what I am not supposed to do. That is causing all the tension, stress, worry and then fear. Student is supposed to study, that's his duty. He will not do that. And sit and watch IPL match. I don't know which team is winning also now. It's so confusing which player is playing for whom. Every year they keep changing all players. पता ही नहीं चलता कौन से टीम में. You have to keep remembering every year. So you don't study and watch IPL and then get nervous and then blame yourself. What is the point? So the duty has to be done. What I am supposed to do, I must do, whether people are doing their duty or not. It is not for them. It is for me to keep my mind fearless. Detachment is a solution for attachment. The more I am able to live independent, more I am fearless. This we have covered earlier, so I will not cover this now. And knowledge, of course, is a solution for ignorance. If I don't know what is going to happen at the time of death, I should get knowledge. If I don't know what is in the room which is dark, I should put on the light. So where I am able to get the knowledge, I should get the knowledge. Where certain things I can't get the knowledge, their faith has to be used. Saying, I have faith. Whatever will happen, I will handle it.
But this ignorance doesn't mean the root ignorance of
It
not
means both.
Knowing who you are actually.
It means both. Root ignorance of not knowing who am I is the cause of fear about death. Because I think I am the body. And even ordinary fears. So many times we don't know what the person is actually thinking about us and we are only imagining something. Even in ordinary level, it is ignorance which causes fear.
So when we are talking about duty, how can you do duty without becoming very serious about it? We would like to do our duty, so that we are out of this fear. But it should not lead to seriousness in life. How do we achieve that?
You do the duty sincerely and with humor. It's up to you. It's the attitude, the attitude with which I do it. I do it with a light-heartedness. This is a duty I have to do and I enjoy it. The more you enjoy the duty, the less serious you will be. For a student, it is going to be a burden. Oh God, I have to read 5 books of this mathematics. Because the fellow doesn't love mathematics. You put 10 books of physics, he loves physics, he will happily finish all the time. The difficulty comes with us because we don't love our duty. Now there are 2 aspects in this. I cannot love every duty that I have. Major duties I should be able to do it lovingly. For that I invoke the love in my heart, for that subject or for that person or for that field, for that country. If I invoke love, the duty becomes lovable. Second, if I dedicate it to someone whom I love, then everything becomes lovable. So if I say that I am doing this dedicated to the Lord, my connection is with Bhagwan straight. And He put me in this position, so I am going to do this duty, dedicating it to Him. Whether the other person responds, doesn't respond, appreciate, doesn't appreciate, it makes no difference to me because I am doing it for 2 aspects. Then duty becomes, you can sail through it. And it will happen that our interest level will fluctuate. That is human. There is no problem in that. As long as I am remaining steadfast in duty, that is enough. The fluctuation should not be from duty to no duty. Fluctuation can be inside duty. Like sometimes you have more love, sometimes you have less love. That is fine. There is no issue.
What if you feel sometimes in your less love, you feel guilty about doing the duty without love, but you're doing the duty.
Continue. Still do it. Yeah. You don't have to feel guilty because that's human emotion. It will fluctuate. It's not going to remain the same. So, few of these aspects which are there, faith. Here the more indication is on that faith aspect. Tumra achha kahu ko darna. When the Lord is with me, I don't need to be scared. So the first step to overcome fear is to face the fear. To identify my fear is my first step. I should go back home and write down major fears, minor fears, and write down what are my fears. Till I don't become aware, I can't solve it. I should become aware of it. In psychology, they always say if you can feel it, you can heal it. I should be able to even feel that fear, not run away from the fear. There is nothing wrong in being scared. Many times we don't want to face our fear because of public ridicule. ये इतना बड़ा हो गया फिर भी इसको इसका डर लगता है. Why should I bother? It is my fear, my journey. I have to fight my demons. Who are other people? Because this taking it as it comes is very is like a very nice sounding statement. So many people don't sit and introspect because say, I don't do introspection. I take it as it comes. But we are not able to take it as it comes. That is our biggest problem. We are suppressing so many things inside, and attention is all outside. So we are not even aware kind of fears which are lurking in the mind. And then suddenly when a situation comes, I collapse. Like Arjun, he never faced his fear of losing Bhishma and Drona. 12 years he knew that this war is going to happen. Why did he not overcome that attachment? Because he never consciously paid attention to it. And it is not that if I don't pay conscious attention to it, it will disappear or it will not come up. In fact, it will come up at such a stage where it will knock me down, where I would not have expected it. Arjun collapsed in the battlefield. Lucky he had Krishna Bhagavan with him. Just imagine, otherwise people like, if Arjun collapsed on the battlefield and Krishna Bhagavan is not there, what would have happened? Disaster for the Pandavas. Nothing. What is the point in their fighting war after that? To many people that happens. At the time of the challenge, they will collapse. Because they have not handled their fear earlier. So we have to sit and spend some time in introspection to know what is my fear. So face it and face it boldly. Second is, so I gave you one acronym of fear. And that was forget everything and run. Second acronym of fear is face everything and respond. Let me face it. Don't run away from the fear. So the second step is let the build-up stop. This we have done earlier. That because ignorance is the cause, the mind plays the game in 3 steps. I don't know. What if this happens? And then I can't handle it. The power mantra to do is I can handle it. And what will give me that strength that I can is my Shraddha. If the Lord is with me, I can handle whatever it is. You just imagine, so many people commit suicide because they feel they can't handle life as it comes. They get into wrong company, they get into drugs, into depression, because they don't have the feeling that I can handle it. They feel I can't handle it, this is too much, I resign, or I quit, or I want to escape. Because they don't have a source of strength to hold on. So my prayers, my faith in the higher, whatever is my source of strength, I can handle. And the third one is when I understand clearly that fear is nothing but false emotion that appears real. It's a projection of the mind. Biological fear, yes. It is natural. If a lion comes here right now, one should run. I will also run. Don't say, Hare Swamiji, you are also running. Okay? You have to run, full stop. That's a biological fear. But we are talking about the psychological aspects. Psychological fears, emotional, intellectual, spiritual, those are all projections of the mind. So one should know that this is just a false emotion appearing. So to end it, I am going to give you one courage mantra. Do you want to know that?
Yes.
Have you learned that before? If you want to chant Mrityunjay mantra, you can definitely chant, or you can chant Hanuman Chalisa. That also is a courage mantra. Mrityunjay also. So the courage mantra is this. Take a deep breath. And the mantra of courage is Om Karejaya Namaha. Invoke courage in your heart. What else? Modern mantra. Om Karejaya Namaha. Invoke it in your heart. Saying, let me be courageous and face it. Why should I run? Don't run. So, tumar achha kahu ko darna. That will give us the courage. That Bhagwan is with me. What is there to run? Hanumanji had no fear in his life. One person who lived absolutely fearless is Hanumanji. No fear at all. Why? Because no attachment, no negative imagination, no ignorance, no prohibited action. All the four are not there in his life. He is happily. You see in a small child's life, very small child. Example has a limitation, but a very small child also will not have fear. Because the child has so much of innocence, the child doesn't know many things. That fearlessness is out of not knowing certain consequences. But because there is no negative thinking, negative imagination, all that is not there. So, tumur achha kahu ko darna. Then he says, Apan tej samharo ape, tino lok hankte kape. That your tej or your strength, you only can handle your strength. Apan tej samharo ape. Hanumanji had uncontrollable amount of power. Tremendous power. You know, many people say, power corrupts and absolute power corrupts.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. But there is an exception. Absolute power corrupts absolutely. Whom it will corrupt? Power corrupts and absolute power corrupts absolutely for the people who are not surrendered. For people who are surrendered in life, power doesn't get into their head. They use power only to achieve the work or the result. That's about it. They don't equate it to their own self-esteem. So, Hanumanji had such uncontrollable or unlimited power. The person can bring a whole mountain and cross over the ocean and go up to the sun, and so many things he did. Yet that power had not got into his head. And he was able to control. That's why he says, Apan tej samharo ape. You are able to control your own power. Nobody else can control that. Why? Because when such amount of power comes to us, it is very natural that it may go into the head and we may lose our balance. Even a little strength or power we have or a special achievement we do, we feel so, so little superior than other people. Here is somebody who is unimaginable amount of power and wealth, power and strength. So one is that he has surrendered himself tremendously. So power doesn't affect him. Apan tej samharo ape. And he says, Tino lok hankte kape. All the three worlds are as though trembling in fear. Not because Hanumanji is one who is exploiting people or troubling people. Real power is not when we use our power to show our authority and dominate and control. Now, one of the reasons why people don't want others to be fearless is the moment a person becomes fearless, you cannot control that person. Fear is a big form of control. And so we use fear to control people. And if somebody is becoming fearless, we become insecure because that person is going out of my control. Typically that happens. When small children are there, no, we use fear to control it. But as they grow, it doesn't work. Fear doesn't work on them. And they start rebelling also. So they start going out of our control. So then we feel, oh God, I am losing the control now. Then we try to control more. So the more the fellow rebels. So fear is a big form of control. And here Hanumanji, when he says here that you have so much of power, but he doesn't control people. When he says Tino lok hankate kape, what does that mean? That he had so much of strength that he could go into all the three worlds to do the work of the Lord, to destroy the evil people. He could go into all the three worlds. He went into the Patal and destroyed that Ahiravan. On the earth, though, he destroyed so many asuras. He went into the higher worlds also. He went up to the sun also. Meaning, to do the work of the Lord, he had the capacity to go anywhere. Tino loka hankate kape. Meaning there are no boundaries for that person, and there is nothing that can make that person limited. Unlimited is his power, and yet he is loved by everyone because he doesn't use the power to dominate. He uses the power to love and to inspire people. Subjectively speaking, Tino lok hankate kape can also mean that in the inner world, the waking, dream and the deep sleep, these are the three worlds of ours. Hanumanji represents that consciousness which is the same in all the three worlds, waking, dream and deep sleep. Each of the world, in waking when I am there, I am not aware of the dream and deep sleep. In dream when I am there, I am not aware of waking and deep sleep. So as an ego, I can be only in one world at a time. But as pure consciousness, all the three worlds are illumined by me. That consciousness is Hanumanji. So he says, Tino loka hankate kape. That is what I said. Three lokas, who are scared of him? People who are the demons. Good people are not scared of him because why should they be scared? He is not going to harm anybody. He only uses the power to destroy the evil in the three worlds. So those people are scared of him. And you see the beauty of Hanumanji is this. And that's the glory of any person who is fearless. A person who is fearless is a person who is detached, who doesn't want control over anybody. So that person will make others also more fearless. That's the mark of a truly fearless person. That not only I am fearless, but I make others fearless. I don't make others scared of me. Those who are negative forces, they will automatically be scared of me. Because I don't approve of any negative forces. But otherwise, no. So he made people like Sugriv, who was living in absolute fear. We saw earlier, no? Tuma upakara Sugrivahi kina Rama milaya Raja. That man who was living in complete fear became so fearless. How? Hanumanji brought Ram to him. So fearless person makes others also fearless. If I am making others scared, that means I am not only scared, but I want control over other people. That I am scared of losing control. So I am making other people also scared. A fearless person will make others also fearless. You see, Bhagwan Ram makes everyone fearless. Nobody is scared of him. So, Tino lok hankate kape. Bhuta pishache nikat nahi aave, Mahavir jab naam suna. Ghosts and spirits will not come near a person when he says Mahavir, or when he says Hanumanji's name, or when he chants Hanuman Chalisa. Swamiji, you should have taken this class in the morning. Why are you taking now in the night? Tonight we can't sleep. With ghosts and all that, I'm very scared of ghosts. Do you believe there are ghosts?
Only the mind.
Ghosts are only in the mind. What makes you believe that there are no ghosts?
Because we have not seen that.
Have you seen infrared light? Have you seen ultraviolet rays? Do you say that they are not there?
You see the effect of that.
So you can see the effect of ghost also.
Yeah.
That's because you have not seen doesn't mean it is not there. You have not seen the effects of lot of things.
It has not caused any problem as of now.
So that's what I'm saying. Just because you and I, so what is my benchmark of knowing whether something exists or not?
Having seen it,
If-
We are affected by it.
Alaska, I have not seen.
Experiencing it.
I have not experienced. It has not caused me any problem. Does it mean it is not there? It is there. No? What makes us believe ghosts are not there? It's just because we believe only in our senses. If you lift yourself just one level above, from the physical level to the psychic level, you can see ghosts. I am not joking.
That's true.
You don't even have to see ghosts. Do you believe your dream experience? Are you there in your dream or not? Are you aware of your body? In the dream state, you are not aware of the body. None of us are aware of the body. What is my condition in the state of dream is the condition of a ghost. That's all. No, I am not joking. I am telling you reality. What Shastra is saying. Embodied being is called as a jiva. Embodied means what? The mind, the intellect, the vasanas, VIM, needs a body to express. That VIM is called as a jiva who is needing a physical body to express. So this physical body is there, so I am experiencing waking state. In the dream state, I am not aware of the physical body, so I am in my subtle body or the astral state. And this vasana, intellect and mind cannot function without a body being there. So at the time of death, when the physical body actually drops, before the next body is taken up, according to the karma, the in-between period when that jiva is disembodied, that person is in a body called as subtle body or ethereal body. That disembodied being is called as a bhuta and pishacha. Typically, it is very easy for a person to cross over. If the person is not attached to the body or to the things or to the people here, at the time of the death, when the person drops the body, very soon the person will cross over and go ahead. But there are certain beings who are not able to do that. Sometimes that so-called untimely death happens, or an accident happens, or suddenly they get ejected out of the body, and they are very attached to this body, or to certain things, or to certain people. So they are not able to move ahead. So they live for a little longer duration in that ethereal body, which is what they call as bhuta and pishacha. And they do exist. And you and I can experience them if we just lift ourselves to the psychic level. That's all is required. There may be people who exploit others in the name of this, so we feel that they don't exist. But they do exist. Just like ultraviolet rays, infrared rays, all those things which are beyond our limitation of the senses, but they exist. The moment you put those glasses, you can see them. In the same way, the moment we lift ourselves to a psychic level, we can even experience. Just like we experience ourselves in the state of dream, subtle body state. So this bhuta and pishacha, they are disembodied beings. And they definitely are beings on whom one should have sympathy and compassion because they are stuck.
But then the logic holds true that they harass also people.
They don't harass people. What happens is, when they are attached to something, they want that thing. And if anybody is using that, they feel possessive, just like you and I feel possessive. Forget ghosts. Human beings don't harass each other for what things they are holding on to.
But you know whom you are fighting against. Here you don't know.
That's the only difference. So then get a specialist, no? Who will tell you. I mean, in a disease also the same thing happens. You don't know what you are fighting against. So you get a doctor to do the diagnosis and tell, look, this is your problem. This is the medicine, this is the way you fight it. The people who are having the psychic capacities, whatever you call them.
She has to know something, so you want to be one.
Yeah, I mean, see, the point is just to know. Here the point is not to get too deep into that aspect. The point is to know that there are these disembodied beings who are there. Shastra says it, and enough people have experienced it. Enough. And more real life experiences are there of people.
So do they always stay like that?
No, they will move ahead. They move ahead, but it depends sometimes on the intensity of their attachment, how much time they take. And so that is why sometimes we destroy the body fast. We don't allow the body to be kept for a long time because the attachment to the body makes them remain near there in that environment. So you destroy the body fast, then they know, okay, body is gone, but I am still there. So I am different from the body, and then they move on. And grace of the Lord, karma, etc. takes them ahead. But sometimes it is that they have to go through that karma when they are attached. So then they go through all that. And there are enough lot of these stories which come about these ghosts and all that. And it is also a fact that they affect only the weak minds. They cannot affect the strong minds. Right now I am affecting your mind and I am talking. You are listening to my ideas. And your mind is changing, thoughts are changing. That's how I am influencing you even now. In the same way, those who are the disembodied beings are in the subtle body level. So subtle body can influence the subtle body. So they can influence our thoughts and feelings. Only if you give access to them. This you know, if you practice Reiki or you practice pranic healing or anything. If the person closes himself, that energy will not go in. So if I have a strong mind saying that I am focused in my life, I have this goal to achieve and nothing can affect me. That's it. Nothing will affect.
Like hypnotherapy also. You block it.
Yeah. But weak minds are those, who get, अरे क्या हुआ, then होगा ही ना.
It is good to have a strong mind or good to have a weak mind which is open to thoughts. What is the balance?
No, strong mind is not a closed mind. Strong mind is a mind which has cut itself off all the negative and unproductive influences and is focused on the goal. So it is open towards higher forms of thinking, creativity, innovation, all that. And only then it can be open, when it is able to cut off the weakness. Otherwise it is always going to be scared. So many people are scared. क्या हो जाएगा? Stock market crash हो जाएगा, ये हो जाएगा, वो हो जाएगा. Then that person can't think high. Now similarly it happens when one feels like all these ghosts and this and that.
Actually, even the scriptures justify this or testify this by having the rituals after death for the people who died and all. That means they do believe in it. That's why there are rituals.
Now you just see logic now, it's very simple. I was there yesterday, you were there yesterday, right? Today you are there. Tomorrow will you be there or not? Life is a continuity. Suddenly it is not going to end. And go where? We are not beings who have come from nowhere and going nowhere. Even if the body dies, what is the law of karma telling us? I am today what I am because of my past choice. And what I will be tomorrow because of my present choice. Only my body is dropped at the time of death. The jiva continues or not. Now that jiva which continues, which has not got an appropriate body, the disembodied being is called as a bhuta. That's all it is. Now we don't believe because of the kind of projection that we see in the movies. White color clothes and then one candle and 12 o'clock in the night. and hanging upside down from the tree and walking through the glass and what is that? Door. Which other way will they show?
They showed
Is
Amitabh
that any way possible for them to show in any other way except this? If they have to show a bhuta.
showed Amitabh Bachchan as a भूत मैंने बनाया कॉम्प्लान है
Achha.
ताकत का भूत it's first talk भूत in a positive way
So we have to just understand bhoot as a disembodied being. That is all. And you and I are actually bhoot right now in the body. That's all it is. We think bhoot is some special variety of a creature.
some people talk
You ask the spouse, na, the spouse will tell my spouse will bhoot. 100%. You and I, each of us are bhoot in any case. What is it? We just think some bhoot is some special creature and oh God, and terrifying and some claws and then it will have some teeth like that and it will come and suck your blood and there are all so many things which are portrayed there.
vampires
Yeah, whatever, vampire and ghost and spirit and this and that.
what is the thing about since you said spirit the spirit getting into a human body that happens
Yeah, each jiva gets into a body.
so somebody else's living body she's talking about possession
That is possession, yeah, that happens. But it cannot, the possession cannot happen forever. To a certain time it happens. That happens to all of us by living. Forget bhoot possessing us. So much we are possessed by money. What is that? Paise ka bhoot hai. The person can't think anything else except money. He got obsessed with that. Similarly, an idea or a thought or that the entity possesses the mind of this person. So the person for that moment loses the individuality, meaning that individuality gets subdued or dormant. And it goes away. By its own, by itself also it will go away because it can't stay more. And if you if required, do some whatever rituals, etc., and it goes away. Point is, bhoot should be scared of us, we should not be scared of bhoot because that creature is in a state of despair and attachment. Why should we be scared of it? The moment we become weak, we give power to it. It applies to everything. The moment we become weak, physically we become sick. We allow our immunity to go down. Same thing emotionally we are doing. If you want to know more about this, take that book, Conflicts and Confusions in Indian Culture. It's a small book. Chinna Mission has brought up. That will tell you about ghosts and spirit also, and then hell is there or heaven is there and all those things. General questions, it has lots of such questions. 15-20 such questions which are there. In our so-called intellectual skepticism, we dismiss what we don't see, which is not right. Without knowing the fact of the matter, how can we reject it? Just by our perception. So we have to first know clearly. Then you and I can decide, this is fact or not. Whether I want to believe it or not, that's up to us. But first let us know, what does this mean? Because see, if you see in the movies and all that, they will show you that Bhagwan manifests and suddenly becomes unmanifest, and you see Bhagwan everywhere means one Krishna will be shown in so many pictures everywhere. Now anyway, the realization are going to happen like that. That suddenly I will see Bhagwan everywhere. But that's the way the movie is going to show. That's the way they will depict. But what is the fact of the matter? That I have to know clearly. So conflicts and confusions in Indian culture, that has explained this to a certain extent. Our main topic is not that anyways. Here the point is that if there is such a fear that is there in me, that there are bhoot and pishach, then Mahavir jab naam sunave. You don't even have to chant the whole Hanuman Chalisa. Just say Mahavir and remember Hanumanji, and that bhoot pishach goes away.
What's the difference bhoot and pishach?
There are some technical differences that I don't know now. Ghost is there, goblin is there, spirit is there, evil spirit is there. So many varieties are there. You can do more research on that if you want. I am anyway not interested. In the living bhoot only I am not interested. Who is bothered about the bhoot who is dead? Literally, by the way, bhoot means what, in Sanskrit language? No, not, that's one meaning. Literally the word bhuta means that which has taken a form, which has been. Or bhuta also means the which is made up of 5 elements. Pancha Mahabhut we say. No? So that is what it means, that's all. So now the point here is that bhuta pishacha nikat nahi aave. Though these beings do exist, Mahavir, when you remember Hanumanji and invoke strength in the heart, the mind becomes strong, then they don't come anywhere close by. And I have seen this happening. There was one person in our Chinmay Yuva Kendra who was possessed. Actually, he was possessed. And first we did not believe, but a few days we saw that the behavior is a certain type of behavior at a certain time for a certain duration, and then the person again becomes normal. And the person started doing certain things which are violent, and the person would not remember anything after that. And many such things happened. And then we did Hanuman Chalisa, we did Guru Stotram and all that, and the person was freed from that. So when the Shastra is saying, it is not just to give us some kind of a moral or a mental assurance, but it is a fact that when the divine is invoked, these forces which are negative or which are in despair, which are in trouble, they cannot trouble us when our mind becomes stronger. So, Bhuta Pishach Nikat Nahi Aave, Mahavir Jab Naam Sunave. Nasai Roga Hare Sab Pira, Japat Nirantar Hanumat Abhira. Constantly chant Hanumanji's name. Most of the diseases we know are psychosomatic. Every thought that we think in the mind affects our body. It translates onto the body in terms of some contraction, some expansion, some hormone getting released. And there is enough research documented on this. A lot of it is our mental projection. So the more negative a person thinks, the more their body goes through troubles. So in our culture, we always say that Vyadhi is the physical disease. Guruji has written that in his commentary. Vyadhi is the physical disease. The cause of that Vyadhi is called as Adhi, which is the mental trouble. So mentally, if I am having fear, anger, stress, worry, tension, negative thinking, all these, some of these also, they translate onto the body in terms of the disease. And remember, disease is a crisis situation. Our body has been made in such a way that it will adapt to a very large extent. Only when its adaptability goes away, then it falls sick. Otherwise, it will keep on adapting, adjusting, all that keeps happening. Especially if there is a terminal disease which happens. It is not overnight that anything happens. The body keeps on adjusting to something which is not appropriate to it. And then when it gives up, it can't do more, then you see that disease happening. And a lot of it is dependent on the mind. Psychology says 95% of our communication of the brain is with its own self. Brain is an organ made to communicate with itself. And hence psychology also tells that if my self-talk is positive, my health will be positive. If my self-talk is negative, my health will be in trouble. How much is my self-talk about myself? What I think about myself? How good is that? And how negative is that? That determines the health. So he says here, Nasai Roga Hare Savapira. Hanumanji being the very embodiment of strength. The more I think of strength, the more stronger I become at the physical level. Documented research. There is a whole diet called Think Thin. Do you know that? You go on Google and find out. The diet is called Think Thin. You have to keep on thinking of yourself as a thin person. And it will push you to do things also which will make you thin. And they go on to that extent of saying that even if you don't do anything, you will lose fat. Just by thinking. That much effect the mind has on the body. Single pointedly you think thin and keep that image of your own body thin, you will lose fat. Of course, you can't keep adding, eating whatever you like and keep thinking thin. Then you can't think thin properly.
But here, chanting of Hanuman Chalisa, if somebody does, like to overcome these psychosomatic disorders, even if one doesn't know the meaning, just the vibrations, the sound vibrations are good enough.
Yeah, one is sound vibration are good enough. Two, if you know even a little bit of about Hanumanji, you are able to have that mental strength that Hanumanji is the embodiment of strength. That Shraddha, that will give all the results. Yeah, that will give. Even the earlier shloka, Bhuta Pishach Nikat Nahi Ave, Mahabir Jab Nama Sunave, is not only to be applied for oneself, but it is also applied for other people. Because somebody is possessed, that person may not be able to chant. You chant for that person will be free. And that's what happened in the case that we saw. That person was not able to chant. We were chanting for that person. That person got free.
So then how do you just take the name of the person and chant?
Yeah, so you have to dedicate it to that person. Like last time I said when I spoke about japa. You visualize that person, feel for that person, then do your chanting. And at the end of the chanting, again visualize that person and offer prayer to the Lord saying, may this person be freed from this. That's all we have to do. Dedication works. Same thing with this. Nasai Roga Harai Sab Pira. Not only for one's own health, one can do it for others also. Yeah. Our own Swami Swarupananji, 3 times he went through. He has a very peculiar disease called, I don't know how to pronounce it, ankylosis spondylitis or something like that. And the disease is such that in some 1 lakh people will get that. And he has that. So what happens sometimes in that disease is that your bones will get, the joints will get fused. So then you can't move. And there is excruciating pain in the back. Even to turn, I have seen him, to turn from, if he's sleeping flat, if he has to turn from that position to come to the left, it will take him at least half an hour. So much of pain. And he had absolute faith in Hanumanji. Just now he has finished 108th Yajna on Hanuman Chalisa. In Singapore he did last month. So he is an authority on Hanuman Chalisa. And his faith in Hanumanji, he revived, he bounced back 3 times. Doctors had given up. Some of them even recommended some kind of a hip replacement and all that in the second attack that he got of that spondylitis. But through Ayurveda, through the faith in Hanuman Chalisa and his mental power, he bounced back. He is doing such wonderful work. Another Swamiji of ours, Advayananji, he also had the same problem. And both of them, tremendous Shraddha. Advayananji has in Gurudev, Hanuman Chalisa, he has Swarupananji. Bounced back. So faith really cures. In a lot of places you will see, doctor only treats. We treat, he cures. It is really faith which cures. Of course, one takes necessary medicine and all that. So, related verse is this: Sankat te Hanuman chudave, man krama vachana, dhyan jo lave. Those who bring their body, their actions at the body level, the mind and the speech together, they can get over any problem. There is nobody's life which is free from problems. And people like Hanumanji, they have greatest of problems. So how did they overcome? Because of integration. This is the secret of success in life. Number 1, it is integration of the personality. When integration happens, then conservation of energy happens. And then application happens, then success will be the result. First step we generally don't learn only how to integrate the personality. keep the body, mind, and the speech in one place. We love something with the heart, we think about something else with the head, actionable we are doing something else. Not possible. How was Hanumanji integrated? Man, Krama, Vachan, Dhyan, Jo lave. From the heart he loved Bhagwan Ram. That is Man. With the actions he served the Lord only. And with his speech he always chanted the name of the Lord. So to bring body, mind and speech together, integration, one single selfless goal is very important. If you can't have a selfless goal, at least have a personal goal for one's own achievement, no problem. Even if it is selfish goal, doesn't matter. At least it is better than having no goal and being dissipated. But the higher the goal, we saw that earlier when we spoke about the sun, Hanumanji leaping towards the sun. The higher the goal, the greater is the inspiration. So that inspiration will lead to integration. Integration will lead to a lot of conservation of energy. And unnecessarily we won't worry, get dissipated, all that won't happen. And then you have application. Such a mind which has conserved itself with so much of integration applies itself in any work. Gurudev always used to say that mind is the doer, not the body. And that mind which has learned to integrate itself, that is a very, very strong mind. Whatever that mind takes up after that, it will achieve success. To such an extent that that person may not even have to do anything. Automatically things will happen around that person. By doing, I mean physical exertion, that much is not required because the power of thought has become so concentrated. That's why you see in the lives of such great people, what they say will happen because their Sankalpa Shakti is conserved and so powerful. They have to just say it and it will happen. You know, when Gurudev once came to Chennai, we had a small nursery school and an office in an old building. And once Gurudev had come there. And a very famous South Indian actor came to meet Gurudev there. And he had a conversation with Gurudev. And Gurudev told him that right here there will be a huge auditorium and you will come to perform here one day. This was somewhere in the late 80s. And in that same place today we have Chinna Heritage Center. And that actor came, I think 2 years back or something, 2 or 3 years back he came. He performed there and before he performed he recollected his incident. He said, I had come here and Gurudev had told this, that here there will be a huge auditorium and you will be performing here. And I remember that very clearly and today that has happened after almost 20 years. Because Sankalpa is very, very powerful. Such great people, they just think and it happens. Because they have conserved their entire energy and they are selfless. Lots of such examples are there. So in our life, the more we learn to integrate ourselves, integration is strength, disintegration is weakness. So he says, Man krama vachan dhyan jo lave, sankat te Hanuman chudave. Any problem can be overcome with a mind which is integrated. A mind which is integrated will face the problem. A mind which is disintegrated will become weak and it will make the problem into a crisis. But a mind which is strong will make a problem also into just a situation. So more of it we will continue in our next class, which is on Saturday. So next class is Saturday evening, same time, 7, and then we will conclude on Sunday, which is in the morning, 9 o'clock.
Submit to एक real incident बता देता हूँ. And my dad का friend करता हूँ. तो उन्होंने 60 years old आदमी है उनका आदमी बहुत परेशान था. उन्होंने डॉक्टर्स को 2 abortion का ये हनुमान चालीसा दीजिए और आपके डॉक्टर तक हम कुछ नहीं करें एट द टाइम इट वाज 6 महीने मैं तो भूल गया 6 महीने बाद में फिर से आया कि आई टू टेल डॉक्टर्स बोथ आर वेरी अगर 5 आप लगे ऐसा काम जो काम किया हनुमान जी ने जो आपने कहा उसमें है जरूरी
We have to have that श्रद्धा.
आज मैं ये बात इनको कही तो बोला ये पब्लिक में मत करो अगर कहोगे तो हनुमान जी उनका पाप है
वो जनरली कहते हैं ऐसा कि ये सब चीज़ें पब्लिक में हम नहीं कहते हैं, बिकॉज क्या होता है उसमें, एक तो हमारा अहंकार बढ़ सकता है, दूसरा जो फिलॉसफी है उस पर से ध्यान उठ जाता है और ये चमत्कार में सब ज़्यादा विश्वास लोग चालू कर देते हैं. इसीलिए जनरली कहते हैं कि भगवान को उनकी खुद की वो जो मिराकल्स जो होते हैं, he doesn't like those to be shared by everyone. That's the reason why it is.
ये तो मैंने आपसे सुना भी
ये बहुत ऐसे होते हैं. It is the fact that the पूरी दुनिया अगर भगवान ने बनाई है तो ये तो चीज़ें होंगी ना भगवान के नाम से. हम कुछ ज़्यादा लॉजिक और साइंस में अटक जाते कई बार, तो इन सब में विश्वास नहीं करते कभी कभी.
हो सकता है डॉक्टर का मनुष्य ये होगा
हाँ, कुछ भी हो सकता है. हाँ, वो चला गया वो करने से, अनुग्रह आ गया भगवान का. ठीक है, राइट. ओम पूर्णमदः पूर्णमिदं पूर्णात् पूर्णमुदच्यते
पूर्णस्य
पूर्णमादाय पूर्णमेवावशिष्यते. ओम शांति शांति शांति. हरि ओम श्री गुरुभ्यो नमः. हरि ओम. So this